If elected Democrats aren't going to stand up to Trump, another group has to fill that void, and that burden has largely fallen on brave protesters across the country. But in steps another group altogether, and that is the clergy of all people. So a bishop in New Hampshire is calling for his priests to put their faith into practice by using their lives to protect the most vulnerable. So here is Bishop Bob Hirschfeld.
I have told the clergy of the Episcopal Diocese of New Hampshire that we may be entering into that same witness. And I've asked them to get their affairs in order, to make sure they have their wills written. Because it may be that now is no longer the time for statements, but for us with our bodies to stand between the powers of this world and the most vulnerable.
So while some in MAGA are saying that his speech was violent, it's really not the case. So Hirschfeld did not call for violence, but instead he said people of Christian faith should not fear death. And he said, those of us who are ready to build a new world, we also have to be prepared. If we truly want to live without fear, we cannot fear even death itself, my friends. That feels like a very Christian way to live too, I think, right? Like a lot of what they believe has to do with the afterlife. And the bishop's church is in New Hampshire, but his remarks were in response to the killing of Renee Good, which obviously happened in Minnesota. It seems that the Episcopal Church, though, is out in front of this because Sean Rowe, the presiding bishop of the church, had this to say. He said, we keep resisting, advocating, bearing witness, and repairing the breach. We keep sheltering and caring for those among us who are immigrants and refugees because they are beloved by God, and without them, we cannot fully be the church. This is such a breath of fresh air that I almost don't know how to respond to it. I mean, this is what we've been asking for from the Christian community, from various church groups, from all religious communities, really, right? To practice what you preach, to practice the preachings of Jesus that you love so much, and you say he was the perfect, the prodigal human that we should all aspire to be. And no, who's going to say anything bad about Jesus and the way he chose to live his life? But what has happened is like the bastardization of his message, the bastardization of the Bible and the things that are in it, the questionability of the Bible, all these things. If you would just live the way that you say that you want to live, then nobody would really have a problem with you living that way. Unfortunately, that is not what we've seen from this particular community at large, right? At least the way that it plays out on the national stage. There's a lot of good Christian people out there. There's a lot of good church groups out there. But the way that the church as an entity functions on the national stage has not been good, generally speaking. And there's been a lot of overstepping, but here we see a bishop speaking out on behalf of the church and the actual message of Christianity, and I'm all for it. Brett, what are your thoughts?
So as a person who is half my family's from the Christian faith, the other, the other half is Hebrew. So I'm a Hebrew national hot dog with mayonnaise on it. That's my identity, a kosher dog with mayonnaise. I can say, and I went to Catholic school, so it's a side of like actual Jesus body on the side, real. That's real. I've got some transubstantiated crackers. That's me. That's the plate that you're hearing this from. Jesus went into the temple to protest. There were people who he said, my temple, I mean, at least according to the documentary Jesus Christ Superstar, he said, my temple should be a house of prayer, but you have made it a den of thieves. Get out. And that's what he did. That's from the Bible. That's from Jesus. You might disagree with what's motivating these people. I would say that if the person who is preaching the gospel of he who is the Lord, amen, or whatever, if that person who was said, like, treat the foreigner, they give him shelter, all that stuff. If he is then going and presiding over a group that is shooting people in the streets, that's pulling them out of their car. I've seen veterans get pulled out of their car. I've seen 17-year-old citizens get tackled because they made the cops feel like little baby boys. Mm-hmm. Like Jesus would have gone into the temple and he would have said, get out. Right? I feel like That's pretty Jesus-y. I'm open to other interpretations of the gospel, much of which I had to memorize for quizzes in 9th grade.
Good. Yeah. I mean, like with the proliferation of Jesus in the United States, there's so many different interpretations of it. But in these last few years, we've seen one of the strangest interpretations, and that is just that like empathy is not good anymore. And like sometimes, yes, abide by the teachings of Jesus, but only if they're not too woke. And also, which God are we talking about? Is it the Old Testament? Is it the New Testament? You know, there's a lot to consider. And naturally, we have come to a place where the actual message of Christianity, what it means to be Christian, has become very, very muddled, right? Not just the way that it's practiced, not just the way that it's implemented in one's daily life, but the actual message itself has become very muddled. And that's not a good place for religious people, I don't think, personally. So, or for the rest of us on that note.